Welcome, Coach Sam, Coach Josh, hanging out with you. We are matching shirts today, by the way. Our pants are a little off. Well, he has blue shorts on now, so now we're a little way off. But
see, the joke is always that we're not wearing.
Right.
I guess the news joke is they're not wearing pants under the desk.
They're not. Yeah, and we could maybe get away with it.
We're just dressing up.
We just had I hear our Christmas bell going off, so maybe that's Ken leaving.
This is not my Christmas bell.
Yeah. We put in a dinger on the door and it can play Christmas music every time somebody comes in. So I thought, what better way to annoy the staff and the members every time somebody walks in?
It's been a massive success in that regard.
It has. Anyways, welcome guys. Coach Millie's not with us today. Coach Sam and I are hanging out today, and we had Bill from MyoFit on the podcast last week. But today we're going to talk a little bit. We're just past Thanksgiving. We're getting ready to hit Christmas full steam ahead and New Year's and all of that. And so one of the topics that we wanted to discuss is how to stay consistent in whether it's your exercise, your nutrition, things like that, in what tends to be an inconsistent time.
Probably the most inconsistent 4 to 5 weeks of anyone's life every year.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you do, this is where just everything can get derailed if you let it.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes people just they just throw in the towel in a sense. They're like, just give it up. They're just like, I'll just deal with this.
I'll get you a January 1.
Right. I'll get to a January 1. Right. I'll get to it after the new year. And while we have people that want to get to something in the new year because they might have new goals or they feel like it's a fresh start or something like that, that's great. But for the people that are already really, we're trying to do stuff already, right? We already have healthy intentions. We already have goals that we're trying to accomplish, but they can get to a point where the outside noise really they just kind of give up, and it's like, I'm just gonna not worry about this for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I didn't really talk about resolutions, but more but the reality is January is not the most consistent either. It's just more consistent.
No.
Because what are we doing? You got how many places are catching up now? So January becomes a little bit busy, just differently busy.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a
no offense, the 4 viewers that we have are probably our clients. So I always think about how can we help our clients be or maintain consistency in this time of somewhat inconsistent, schedules and things like that.
I would say cancel all your plans.
Cancel them all. No more parties.
Christmas parties are not that good.
Yeah.
No. So there's a couple pieces of the pie here for me that I see, and it's almost all behavior. Like these are, this is not going to be how to squat today. This is very behavior driven. First and foremost is expectations. One is you got to be honest with yourself. Like, what is real? Like, if you're sitting there, like, Josh, you've got 3 kids. How many kids' Christmas parties are coming up, or kids' Christmas related events? I know you've already had one.
I mean, we've already had one. We've already had one. We've got easily at least 2 more on the schedule. Yeah.
And does Gina have a work Christmas?
She does this Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else come to mind?
And then I come from a split family, so I'm gonna have just in the Christmas time. My actual Christmas stuff starts December 22nd with travel movement. I mean, and I'll have 3 places I will go just in my family.
So we're at 7 events right now.
Let alone then my wife will have we'll have 2 places to go to.
We're at 9 events now.
We're at 9. Yeah.
We're at 9 in 4 weeks.
And I guarantee you when my wife looks at this or watches this or listens to this, she's gonna go, he missed 4 of them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I can tell you
because 9's not enough.
That's a 9. 9's a good estimate.
9's not even that busy. There's like 2 days every weekend.
Yeah.
That's an afternoon party and an evening party.
Right.
And then there's all the extra time.
Right.
To get ready for this.
Sure.
So yeah, you're not really gonna see wildly. So what you need to do is you need to sit there and be like, okay, if this is what's real, my expectations need to fit into this. It's real.
Yeah.
The super simple one right here, and I think we should definitely get more in depth, but is basically just setting what is your minimum, setting a real minimum expectation.
Yeah.
And then the second piece is you have to follow up by letting that be okay.
Yeah.
Like, so if you sit there and like, you know what, things are going to be nuts. My goal is to get all my training in, of course.
Sure.
But in the end, I want to make sure I at least do 15 minutes of intentional movement, or like, no matter what, I'm putting 15 minutes in on my bike.
Right.
Like, so and why that's important is you get to the point of busy. Well, if you're getting that done, you're at least checking that box.
Yes.
That should mean you do not get to be upset with yourself over meeting your expectation.
Right.
Yes, you want more, but I mean, everybody wants more of everything. It's the human condition. We want a bigger paycheck. We want more. We want a bigger lift. We want a bigger. If you write books, you want to sell more of them. If you write books, you want to write a second one.
Right.
We of course we want more, but like, you have to have that. Like, you have to be true and honest with your expectations of yourself, and then you have to give yourself, like, you have to let that be okay.
Yeah.
Like, plain and simple.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, because and I have this conversation with clients throughout the year, not just around the holidays, but like, sometimes we set our expectations here, but our effort or our abilities are here. And so then there's this disconnect with the result, right? And what happens. And I think setting appropriate expectations for whatever season you're in, and not even just the holiday season, but whatever season in life you're in, is extremely important to help you be okay with what's going to happen in your fitness or whatever else. And so
because you know why you're doing it.
Right. And we're talking about having those appropriate expectations. And that comes from like looking at the calendar in this time of year and going, okay, well, I see this day that we have coming up on Saturday where we have a sporting event for one of the kids. Because, oh, by the way, we're not just talking about holiday events. We added 9 holiday events to my calendar outside of 3 children's activity events, work-related things, all this, right? Like, you have the normal stuff going on still. So setting the expectation of going, okay, well, if I know that this Saturday is not going to be the usual hour training time I'm going to get, then being okay with, well, then, but if I could get up 20 minutes early and just do some mobility that day, I'm going to feel good that and you and I use the same language here, that I checked the box for something, right? Because it's about getting that rep in for yourself towards your goals, but also being okay with like that rep doesn't have to look the same at this time of the year as it does maybe.
And it never does.
Months earlier. Right.
Like, it never does. I mean, that's the thing, is we all hold ourselves to this invisible standard that doesn't exist, that we think everyone else is so busy judging us. No, they're busy doing the same BS that we're doing to ourselves,
right,
to themselves. And we all beat ourselves up thinking that everybody else is beating
like
us
someone
up.
else cares about what I'm doing.
Right. Like,
yeah.
And the other piece of that puzzle is like, you sit there and you look at the schedule, you got to decide, like, okay, if it really is that important to do your hour, then guess what? You're getting up early.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Are you willing to, you have to take responsibility for getting that hour, right?
Correct. I think one of the biggest things I want to get into are going to be evening and morning routines.
Cool.
For this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, but I think first things first is expectations, honesty in those expectations, and acceptance of those expectations.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I use Apple Watch.
Yep.
I actually have grown to like the ring thing, but for different reasons than everyone. My rings are set to my minimum desires. 45 minutes exercise. I normally work out for longer than that.
Sure.
But even on a rest day, I at least want 45 minutes of movement, whether it's walking, yes, X, Y, or Z. It's like, on my least active days, what do I want to accomplish?
Sure.
And, so maybe you adjust your rings for that. Like, close your rings every day. But you set your, maybe, again, if your time is 15 minutes, you change your ring to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And everything extra, bonus, gravy.
Yep.
And like setting those, and like I said, that's the biggest thing, is you are going to get in your own way. It's not going to be someone else. I'm not going to be like, Josh, you get your 15 minutes in today. No, I got my own stuff to take care of.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think that, so I think that right there is the biggest issue, or the biggest challenge, I should say, for most of us, is expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I think setting those expectations, and I always tell people, like you're saying, like, decide, maybe you change what those expectations are this time of year. But I always think about, like, you said, what am I good with on my lowest activity days, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I set those things at. I think about that from like, what's my low hanging fruit, right? So whether I am working with our staff and developing something or getting better at something, or I'm working with a client or whatever else, like what's the low hanging fruit that we can grab and feel like we got to win today or this week or whatever that may be. And like you said, like being able to set that. So what would you say, like you mentioned, how do we create consistency in like our morning and evening routines, the things that maybe we can control? How do we create consistency in those things that allows us to then see those wins throughout the day?
So first off, it is one thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
You do not have, if you have zero morning routine and you think that you're going to set 5 items for your new morning routine, and that is your standard now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's hard to get good at
you're on the Heartbreak Express.
Yeah.
You're not, like, that's just not a great strategy.
Yeah.
It's one thing at a time. So the first thing first is, whenever possible, sleep and wake times are the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
Your sleep and wake time does not know a weekend.
Yeah.
That is the number one thing you could do for yourself. This is coming from somebody who had, like, I've got massive sleep issues from my injury from the military. The only thing the military wanted to diagnose that for a long time was my insomnia. They're like, oh, I don't know why you have this insomnia. We're not going to acknowledge the other stuff.
Other things going on.
Yeah. So I've had to work very hard at this. And I will say, first and foremost, that is the most important piece of the puzzle. That means no snooze button. And that means a little bit of discipline on going to bed. And then from there, your evening routine probably needs to start at least 60 minutes before that. I'm a 90-minute person. That's just where I'm at. But I think it's probably going to need to be at least an hour's worth of down regulation. When does the TV go off? What do I do? What I'm like, and these sorts of things, I like the Charlotte's Web CBD gummies. I take those at the same time every night. It's always at 8:30, between 8:30 and 8:45. I take that. So that's a trigger to go to sleep. It's a down regulator. For the morning, now what am I doing when I wake up? Now I can start to add things once my wake time is good. Some people, they like to do the coffee and reading. I get up and I do some breath work. That's just my thing. I like to get up, breathe, light movement, and then I'll try and hit a journal, like hit a short journal. I do the Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
It's a journal. It's like 3 lines.
Yeah.
That right there is a great start to my day. And when I get good at that skill of consistency, like that's what's going to set the table for, like, whenever you have to get up early, it's easier to, once you're good at being consistent, it's easier to turn the knobs.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's the biggest crux that isn't expectations from a physical standpoint, is your evening and your morning routines. That will set you up for success or derail what you're trying to get done.
I think you make a couple of good points there that I want to highlight. Number one is the working on one thing at a time. This is the way we approach this a lot with our, I'll specify on our nutrition clients a lot, is because we have someone that comes to us to work on their nutrition. And if I give them, well, hey, I want you to drink a gallon of water a day. I also want you to get 140 grams of protein in, and I'd like you to also get this many grams of fat and this many grams of protein. Please also track all of your food going into MyFitnessPal. And additionally, you need to walk for 30 minutes a day.
There's no stress.
Right.
There's no stress.
So I've given them 5 items to work on, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to do all of them fairly poorly, right? Versus saying, hey, this week, what I'd like us to work on is I want you to start by drinking more water. But before that, I would say, hey, what I'd like you to do first is actually just track how much water you drink today in the next 3 or 4 or 5 days, right? I'm giving them one task. Now, do I know that one task is not the end of the answer that they're going to have for getting better at nutrition? Nope. But if I give them 5 things, those 5 things are going to be done rather poorly, or they're really only going to focus on one, do one well, and they're going to all the rest of them are going to fall off by the wayside. So the whole thing of doing something, one thing, and starting to master that one thing, right? The second thing that you mentioned is you talked about a few of the things that you do in your morning routine and a few of the things that you do in your evening routine. The thing is you kept saying, that's what I do. This is how I do this.
These are examples,
and
it's a template.
Yeah. And we're not telling somebody that those are the things that you should do, because what you do when you get up in the morning and what you do before you go to bed it depends answer
Yeah,
based on
it's
you.
more on the intention you're doing it
Correct.
with than the actual physical act.
But
More often than, I mean, outside of like, yeah, if your nighttime routine is like, all right, if I'm getting ready to go to bed, I scroll social media for 30 minutes. Yes,
I can tell you to probably, yes,
that's an anti,
right,
that is an anti, part of my evening routine is the phone goes upside down by 8 o'clock.
sure,
Ideally, like, I like it when I do it at 6,
yeah,
but
that'd be great. Yeah,
but it doesn't always work that way.
sure,
Phone gets flipped over by 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't click on those, and if I do, I catch myself and I say, oh, no.
yeah,
And that's okay. I don't beat myself up if I make the mistake,
right.
because I did a good enough job of being aware to catch myself.
Yeah. So again, yes, there are some general rules that we would probably say, hey, here are probably appropriate things to do in the morning. Here are probably appropriate things that you could do in the evening, from an up regulation to a down regulation, things like that. That being said, the consistent wake time and sleep time, that's something that would be in a positive. It's not an it depends. It is a yes. That's a great thing to do. It's called sleep rhythm.
Yes.
Okay, and your sleep rhythm should be consistent. It doesn't mean that you need to go to bed at 10 p.m. or 10:30. It means that, like, if you go to bed at midnight every night and you get up at 6 a.m. every morning, then and you do that consistently, that's 100% sleep rhythm, because you're consistent at your sleep time or your wake time and your sleep time every day.
I'm gonna try and convince you to get to bed earlier.
Right. That being said,
But
you would be consistent with your sleep.
Look, the first skill is consistency.
Yes.
The first skill of consistency is, or the first skill is consistency.
Right.
Everything else that enables all the other adjustments.
Yes. So I really liked that, is one, working on one thing at a time, whatever that one thing might be. The other thing is that it's, the first thing that you can control for the most part, minus, and I got 3 kids. And so I understand, like, parents can't always regulate what time they get up in the morning based on what time one of my kids walked out of the room at 6:05 the other morning. Now, I was already up, but I'm already irritated because I'm like, well, that's part of my morning routine. It's nuts, right? I'm like, get back in your room, But so we can't always control that, or you have a kid that's up sick and they're up later than they want to be, and so I get that we can't always control that, but being intentional about what time we get to bed, what time we get up in the morning, can be drastically helpful to then trying to also then find, okay, now how do I downregulate? How do I,
It's probably really important to look at consistency, not as 100%. It's how big of a percentage can I truly get?
Yeah.
Am I doing my best all the time?
Right.
Perfect effort. Perfect execution is almost always a myth. It happens every once in a while. We see it in sports. The perfect, how often, there's not a perfect game thrown every year.
Right.
There are pitchers capable of it.
Absolutely.
On every team.
Right.
Perfect execution is almost a myth.
Yeah.
Perfect effort is very real and accessible to every single person with a heartbeat. So really make sure that we're not thinking consistency means this is the only thing I do. It's the thing that I do to exercise when it's in my control.
Right. Okay. So morning routines, evening routines, anything else, like, from a consistency standpoint, that you feel like can aid, again, selfishly, our clients, but aid someone to be consistent throughout this time.
Keep layering it on.
Yeah.
Keep layering it on, So and talk to people about it. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people try to figure this stuff out in here.
Right.
They try to get in here and they try to find it.
Yeah.
But the reality, like, things that I do, my wife and I, we watch the same show.
Okay. Yeah.
But and obviously we run out of that show and move to another one, but that show becomes a trigger. Oh, it's bedtime. When we watch The Simpsons, we're getting ready to go to bed.
Nice.
Well, I've never actually watched. I was never allowed to watch.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So The Simpsons. Yeah. Fun fact: The Simpsons debuted 10 days after I was born.
Right.
The Simpsons serves as a running commentary on the world my entire time on it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And so it's been really fun and sad.
Yeah.
Because in 1989 and 1990 they were saying all the same things.
Right.
We're like, look at this new problem. But I digress.
Yes.
But like that's another example of just little things, or in the morning routine, find something that's like cool or exciting, like I said, in the breath work, movement, habit realm, journaling. But find the thing that, like, excites you. Like, it's like, consistency isn't boring.
Yeah.
Like, consistency executed at its highest level is you getting to do exactly what you love all the time.
Right.
To be honest, like, I love to start my day like that. I feel better for that. And maybe it is journaling. You find this new journal style, or find the thing, find little things to layer in
Mhm.
that you enjoy, that you, again, gives you a reason to do that. Like, it's not consistency for the sake of consistency, it's consistency for the sake of enhancing your life.
Yeah.
So what enhances your life?
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, and I found that, and I've always been somebody. I'm an early morning person, but I like my time early morning, and throughout the years, that's adapted and changed. Years ago when I was coaching early every morning, like that wasn't necessarily easy to do,
Yeah, it
right?
wasn't your
Right. So now, I'm still up. I actually have been working on, this is something I'm layering in right now, is I'm working on not using an alarm and just waking up naturally when I wake up. I struggle with the balance of getting enough sleep, but also getting up early enough so that I can do some of the things I want to do, that make me feel ready to start my day. And so,
do you use when you were using an alarm, I'm assuming you're not right now.
Yeah.
Did you use like a volume alarm, or did you use like your watch for vibrate?
So when I got my new watch, it started doing the vibrate thing.
So nice.
So yeah, so I had the vibrate thing. Yeah.
They call it a haptic
Yeah.
alarm.
Mhm.
If you have the ability to use that instead of something that's going,
Yeah.
oh, it's so much better. It's actually so much easier to not hit the snooze
Yeah.
button.
Even my sound alarm was very it would slowly rise,
Build.
not
Okay.
yeah. So
I
it
like
would like
that.
slowly build, not it wouldn't be, it was never super loud, but it would slowly build into a noise, not a meh, meh, like to where you like
Also-
hate whatever sound that is.
Also, if you don't get up at the same time as if you have a significant other,
Yeah.
you don't get up at the same time, you switching to a silent alarm is probably the nicest thing you can ever do for them.
My wife doesn't care. She's like, yeah, cool. Your alarm can go off whenever it wants to go off. I'm still gonna stay back right next to it. She's not bothered by it. But I have the vibrate on my watch now. But one of the things that I've been trying to work on is just waking up when I naturally wake up. That may mean that I wake up actually at like 4:15 in the morning, and I went to bed at 10:30, and maybe I didn't get 8 hours of sleep, but that's just when my body was ready to roll and move, and I've felt better with that. Other times, today was more like 5:45 or 5:43 to be exact. And so I just got up then, and so I'm just trying to kind of feel that out, building on my sleep rhythm, things like that. But one of the things that I've tried to really tinker with is different things. I've done different journals. I've done different reading. I've done the miracle morning deal and different things like that. But when I found resistance, like you're saying, is like this stuff should be invigorating to you, and you should enjoy it. Not there isn't a little bit of mundane things to discipline, and maybe you got to do some things that you don't love to do, but ultimately, if you're doing something that you're completely resistant to over time, you should be finding something else that you're not as resistant to, because
My next thing was going to be, don't fear change.
yeah,
Don't fear change. You're not making a lifetime commitment to any of it.
right,
Like, you're committing to you today,
right,
and that momentum is really valuable, and that will bleed over into the rest of your life.
for sure.
We have a world that is just terrified of change.
Yeah.
Don't fear, just like Josh was talking about, do not fear change. That was my next
Yeah.
point. That I was like, oh, well, this is going to work well.
Yeah, and so the other encouragement I would give to our people is like, from a discipline standpoint, although you got to set expectations, and you've got to and then you've got to be honest about those expectations, and then be accepting of the responsibility now you have for those expectations, or to follow through those expectations. The other thing too is like, just like every Christmas activity going on is in my family's calendar, put those expectations in your calendar. Like, if you know that, like, hey, this is my time that I want to exercise, then put it into your calendar. Like, get to your calendar before everything else gets to your calendar, and put it in as an appointment or an event, just like anything else. This is something I've said about to clients forever.
This is a 12-month half.
Forever.
Not a
December. Yes.
It's not a December.
But it's like, get to your calendar before everything else does, and put the things in there that are priorities to you, and set them as an event. Because when you get to the day that it's like, this isn't going to happen today, you don't delete the event, you just move the event. And so maybe that workout that you planned for an hour on Saturday, and then all of a sudden your friends came into town and they wanted to go to a Christmas brunch, and you were like, well, when I was really going to do this at 10 a.m. on this day, or go to the gym at 8 for the class or whatever else. Well, you know what? Why don't I just move that event over to Sunday? That would have been a normal rest day for me, and I'll do something at home that day towards my fitness, whatever that may
And
be.
You're not going to be under the gun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, especially if we're going to get specific into exercise, strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
While you are going to be busy through this season, there is not a Christmas party an obligation every day.
No.
So find the days that aren't and get it in your
And
calendar.
put it in.
Hey, you know what? I'm going hard. I'm going to do an hour and a half at the gym.
Right.
Today. I am going to empty the tank because I like doing that and I've missed getting to do that.
Mhm.
So strike while the iron's hot, and then know that then maybe the next day you're crazy busy and you only get to meet your 15-minute minimum.
Yep.
Well, you know what? That was probably not a bad thing for you.
Yeah, because you got a good session.
Yeah.
I've had to get comfortable with training on Saturdays and Sundays with the family schedule. And that was something that I didn't do for a long time because I wanted to really make sure that I was dedicating time to just being with my family during those times. But what I've found is my family's asleep anyways until at least 7 o'clock in the morning, most mornings. And so I'm not bothering anybody and I'm not disrupting my time with them by jumping on the bike for 30 minutes before the day starts. And that's the other thing. Yeah, absolutely. And my mom, my wife knows that. She's like, listen, have you worked out? Like, you need to go work out. Like, it's part of, who I am and what I am. It helps me just feel better as a person. And we currently have our C2 bike in our living room. I didn't ask permission for that either. Like, I didn't say, hey, do you mind if I have a bike in here? I think I still need to do that. I probably will do that tonight when I get home. But the thing is, it's been sitting there and nobody's coming over. It'll leave the living room before, relatives or friends come over for visits. But right now, it's something I don't really like to exercise in the morning. But by having it there, and this is something I was working with my mentor on, because last week I had a terrible week of workouts, and just the days were getting away from me, just with fires that would pop up with everything going on between family stuff, business stuff, everything. And he's like, well, why don't you just try to get something in the morning, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, whatever else. So the other thing too, for you busy people out there, you feel like I don't have any time throughout my day, get to you first, right? So I just try to get on there for 30 minutes before anybody's up at my house. So if I work out, if I get on that bike from 6:15 to 6:45, I'm really not disrupting any of their schedules and no one's moving and we don't have to go with our day. And if that's the only thing I get in that day, then so be it.
You check the box.
Then I check the box, right? And then I may get another workout in later in the day that was more the plan, but if I don't, then so be it. I'm good, right? Like, I at least got that.
We burn some calories,
Yeah.
we burn some energy.
And that's been super helpful for me, especially with the busy weekends, whatever else. Like, just get something in the morning first.
Yeah.
That's been helpful.
My wife tells me no to very few things.
The
I'm very
C2 bike in the living room.
And the C2 bike in the living room was a hard no. It was a hard no. I didn't realize that
it may be a hard no for me too. I just haven't asked the question yet. So, and I think now she's probably like even more irritated because Bo's getting on it and he's 4 and he can't really reach anything. And so she's probably also worried he's going to hurt himself. So yeah, it's probably going out after this podcast. Right. So, but it's been really helpful for me because that's the other thing too, is like, I don't want to be in the garage. So when the kids, if they do get up early, I can kick the TV on for them and I'm just sitting right there writing while they're watching the TV. So it doesn't, it's again, trying to ease the path of resistance to get exercise in with kids and family and everything else. But anything else? I want to share I got a couple of things I kind of screenshotted from James Clear. So James Clear.
Yeah, if any of this is striking a chord and you've not read James Clear's Atomic Habits, guess what? You should ask for that for Christmas.
You should
just buy it.
Hit us up and I'll get you one. I love it so much. So there was 2 things I looked at and we hit on both of this. So like one thing was the whole setting expectation thing. And he posted this the other day out of Atomic Habits. 1 push-up is better than not exercising. 1 minute of guitar practice is better than none at all. 1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. It's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. And I think that that is a great rule to follow during this season, is that it's not about how much, it's about just getting that rep in or checking that box and knowing that like, hey, I did this because this is part of my goals. It maybe wasn't exactly what I hoped for, but it got the job done.
And you want to know the other thing this mindset will do for you? You start to realize you're not missing as much as you thought you were.
Yeah.
As you start to look at this, and I view all of what we're talking about is operating out of gratitude, very much so. And if you start to realize, when you start to look at things like this, you start to realize like, oh man, I've got way more time than I thought I did. I'm doing way more than I thought I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, stress level goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, so much as I wish we could just say exercise, but it's all up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's all what we decide to have happen between the years.
Yeah. The other one that we kind of touched on is when we were talking about setting expectations, being honest with ourselves a little bit when we set those expectations, and then being accountable, I think is what you mentioned, to those expectations,
Yep.
right? When I think about accountability, thinking about being responsible, right? Like, so that was a word, and this was something that came up. And so this is something if you're someone that right now is like, we've hit a chord and maybe you feel a little convicted. Maybe you're like, man, like they don't get it or whatever else, or like maybe like you've been struggling to even create a habit of any sort here. But you're so tired of where you're at, right? Like you're so tired of like the lack of progress you're seeing maybe, but you maybe haven't set expectations. You haven't been honest with yourself about those expectations, and then you're not being accountable to or you have these expectations, but maybe you're not being accountable to the expectations, so you're not being responsible. This is something else James Clear said that popped up that somebody in my mentor group posted, is that life rarely changes in a positive way without an increase in responsibility. That can mean taking ownership of your health, or committing to a relationship, or starting a business. Whatever it is, if you want the trajectory to change, the amount of responsibility usually has to change. And that was just I thought about that when you were talking about.
I think it's just the most real thing there. Like,
yeah,
talk to anyone that has gotten over the I can't phase of mindset, who's gotten to the other side of that line, and they will say, yep, it's a meat, of course.
Yeah. So if you want so the meat and potatoes of that is like, if you want things to be consistent this holiday season with your health and your fitness, then you have to take responsibility for that. Like, no one's going to do it for you. Like, you have to take responsibility of that. And that may mean that you have to be more disciplined. You got to get up earlier in the morning. You got to work out when you don't want to. You got to get just something in, not everything in. You might have to have a conversation with your spouse or your partner or whatever else to say, this is a priority to me and I need to be responsible for this. And so I need to tell you that, so that you know that this is what I'm putting on myself. Like, you don't have to be responsible for it, spouse or partner, but I am responsible for it. And this is important to me right now. Right.
And especially for those of you that are parenting, you may just have to flat out ask for help.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a really big deal to me. I really want to make sure I'm getting this in.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? Like, this is the type of support that I feel that I may need.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, you got to ask for it.
Right.
And now it has to be okay for them to say no, for it to be a real question.
Yeah.
And maybe you're sitting like, really want to train 2 hours a day. 2027 CrossFit Games are coming. I got to get 2 hours in every day this holiday season. Otherwise, there's no chance.
Yeah.
I hope your significant other says no. Like, it has to be okay for them to say no, because you're in it together. And I promise you, by making them unhappy, you won't get happier.
No. Yeah. You gotta find that balance, and it has to be a work. You gotta work together with your spouse. You guys gotta both be in on that for sure. So, anything else today?
The only other thing, when in doubt, set reminders on your phone.
Yeah.
like whatever the habit is that you want to
live by reminders on my phone.
Like whatever habit it is that you're trying to hammer, put it in your phone. It can pop up. Other than that, like, the reason why we've gone so hard in the morning routine and the nighttime routine is the morning routine is the start of your day, and momentum is very real. If you start the day off sluggish, you're probably going to enter the day sluggish, and sluggish doesn't beget more speed.
Yeah.
But you start exactly how you want, with things to set you on fire in the right way. Well, you tend to be able to carry that through the day. Ask anyone in the 5:30 a.m. class consistently. That's why they go to 5:30 a.m. even on their days off.
Yep.
because that's how they want to start their
Start
day,
their
because
day.
that makes them the version of themselves they want for the next 12 to 18 hours, however long they're up.
Right.
And you can't have a consistent morning routine without a consistent bedtime and evening
That's for
routine.
sure.
If you're going to bed all over the place and you think you're going to be consistent in the morning, you're either the world's biggest anomaly or you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things for me is I struggle with my consistent nighttime routine, and then that bleeds into the morning. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's a really good point, is it's got to be consistent on both ends. But again, if you're trying to figure that out, start with one thing, right?
Yep.
So be consistent on one end and then see.
It'd be amazing how much confidence comes from that first victory.
Right, for sure.
Like there's so much, like you will never gain more confidence than going from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to be harder than going from 0 to 1. It just truly isn't. To go from a complete standstill to forward, it's hard. Like it is the hardest piece of the puzzle. I express it to everyone that comes in here after maybe not doing anything for their health for a while. And I explain to them how, like, proud, I try not to use the word proud because it makes them feel weird, but like, it makes me proud to have people around me that are willing to make that 0 to 1 change, because 1 to 2 is not harder.
Yep.
1 to 2 is not harder, and 3 to 4 is got some steam behind it.
The cool thing is too, that once you make it to 1 and then 2 and then 3, I hear the thing, like, people will say like, oh, I'm back to ground zero, or I'm back to square one, or whatever else is always as a statement made, especially if somebody's had a surgery or whatever else. Like, no, actually, you're never actually back to zero. Like, you never go back to zero after that, because you can't unlearn, or like you've already had those experiences. You still keep all that, right?
Your experiences are yours.
Yeah, that's huge. So, well, listen, guys, it's been a great talk, Coach. We had no script on this, by the way. Coach threw this out to us earlier this week as an idea on some topics. We've got some great topics coming up over the next couple of weeks. We will not be shutting down over the holidays. We're going to do a little pre-recording on some stuff. We got our nutrition coaches that are going to be back on here in another week or so to talk about their upcoming nutrition program that they're launching in January. We're actually going to be hosting some clients on the podcast coming up soon. And then I've got actually another gym owner coming in on the podcast here in a couple of weeks. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming on. But we thought this was a really timely topic to discuss around consistency. So Coach Sam, thanks again.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it. We miss Coach Millie. I know she'll be back in action with us next week. Take care, guys. If we don't see you before the holidays, have a great holiday season. See you.